Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for attending my presentation. Today, I will talk a little bit about my research study, which I've named Creative Music Making for Social Transformation, Immigration, Social Capital, and Music. I will share my students' perceptions of their creative processes and their experiences working with Chamos, a community of Venezuelan immigrants residing in Ecuador, and I will discuss those perceptions within the social capital theory. I would like to begin by sharing a quote from one of my interviewees, which I think depicts part of a transformation process she had after she created music for the project. I've spent a lot of time reading books about existentialism, and I've learned that I'm a whole being. I'm a part of a plurality. But there's a huge difference between reading and living that way. This experience was like a combo, because I truly got to live that concept. I can say now that I'm a person with both a biological and a cultural heritage. I fully understand that I'm not an isolated element, but a part of something bigger than myself. As mentioned before, the purpose of this project was to examine how a creative music process impacted a group of non-music major students' perceptions of a group of Venezuelan immigrants as they got to know them, interact with them, and understand their realities and needs. For the last few years, the political climate in Venezuela forced many of its citizens to immigrate to different countries throughout South America, including Ecuador. Immigration movements and its consequences are not new concepts for Ecuadorian citizens, as long as they refer to Ecuadorians residing in other countries or to the growing communities of expats residing in certain cities throughout the country. Migratory movements towards Ecuador as a means to look for better job or living opportunities are relatively new and have created cultural and social dynamics that need to be analyzed and discussed. During the last couple of years, Ecuadorian citizens have in some ways felt uneasy and concerned about how the situation impacted labor opportunities for Ecuadorians, which created tension and violent incidents between both communities and showed an increased need for building bridges to create improved connections between the two groups. The concept of social capital has been understood in different ways, with most authors defining it as the assets such as networks, norms of reciprocity, and trust that help develop connections among individuals, as well as a transformed vision of the community in which they live. Robert Putnam contends that social capital is a collective phenomenon in which people work together and create opportunities that improve people's lives. Putnam considers that social capital could work as a lubricant, which could become a bridge between communities, facilitating and enhancing the interactions between the groups and the individuals within them. These interactions will then become the basis on which social capital will build from. Participation in joint activities will enable those connections and build strong networks of people that work towards a common aim. If we see social capital as something that could bring harmony to a society through the establishment of common goals and shared values, then musicking becomes an ideal tool to engage and connect people in positive and meaningful ways, because music's inherent social nature allows people to bond and interact with each other in a natural way. For this project, 30 students were trained and required to prepare a series of creative products as they got to know, interact, and understand the community. The creative process was threefold. The self. At the beginning of the semester, students were required to think of who they are and represent that idea musically. The community. After they explored the self, the students visited the community for the first time. They were greeted with Venezuelan food and music, which created a harmonious space for the community members to tell the stories about how and why they left Venezuela, as well as narrations of their current circumstances. After the visit, students were asked to compose a song inspired in their experience with Chamos. From the 30 songs, 4 were picked to be performed at a charity concert aimed to raise funds to support the community. The self within the community. After the concert, students were asked to compose a third song as a reflection of their experiences and the work they did with Chamos, something that represented their new vision of the community they live in. Data collection included students' reflections throughout the semester, 2 focus groups with the participants, and follow-up interviews with 4 students who volunteered to be interviewed. Aspects guiding reflections and interviews were mainly focused on creative processes and the development of the self, interactions with the community, the creative self thinking about the community, and the creative self within a new and broader community. Both focus groups and interviews were transcribed and coded for the generation of themes and ideas. The focus groups and the students' reflections were particularly informative of their feelings. Many students admitted how biased they were before their first contact with the community. Some of them said things like, "It was a complete surprise. I was scared of how they were going to behave with us. I don't know. There's a lot of resentment out there. But I don't know. They were so welcoming, and I couldn't believe it when they fed us such amazing food when I know they don't have enough for themselves. They were just so nice. And the music, they played so beautifully for us. My favorite part was when they played our music and we all got to sing together." Their compositions after the first visit were a crucial point in this experience. A number of students expressed how important it was for them to do something that could help the community. "We need to give back. After what they did for us, it's the least we can do. We need to show them that they're welcomed in our country. They need to feel safe here." The concert the students prepared and where they performed their songs was especially important for them. Besides feeling proud of their music, given their lack of expertise, they felt like they contributed to improve the situation. "I know we were not able to contribute a lot financially, but this helped us create bonds that were needed. Perhaps that's our biggest contribution." An examination of the interviews indicates that beyond understanding the motives and needs of an immigrant community, musicking and the 3 points throughout the creative process helped students situate themselves within a changing society. One of the participants commented, "I've always wanted to understand people's behaviors, and there are certain things I haven't found an answer for. But with this experience, I learned that there are people who do certain things we don't understand because they have motivations from deep inside. And those motivations are deeply rooted. They come from their sociocultural experiences or maybe from the changes they're facing. I mean, when they move from one cultural environment to another. So, rather than realizing that, I understood that there are things that simply cannot be fully understood, but accepted. Because if we don't share their motivations, we must accept them because they're valid. They're valid for them." Another interviewee emphasized how vulnerable she felt when she had to sing her song in front of the community. However, that vulnerability became secondary when she realized that she was doing that for people that needed that from her. "In the end, it didn't matter. My fear didn't make sense anymore because regardless of whether or not my song was musically good, the message we tried to convey was beautiful." Literature concerning social capital and music education has emphasized the need for fostering participation in group musical activities as a means of developing intra- and inter-community networking, as well as connections and friendships among individuals and groups. The present project aimed to examine how social capital can be built from a creative process based on interactions with the community. Aspects such as acceptance, vulnerability, openness, and reciprocity were present and could be considered indicators of social capital. They became the bridges that connected both communities as well as the basis of a transformed and broader sense of community as it was perceived by the group of students that participated in this project. Thank you very much.